Right, so today I have joining me is Brid Carroll. Brid, I was looking you up there on Google just to see how would I introduce you. So I came across a nice little introduction that says you're from an educational background, that you're a qualified psychotherapist and a counselling supervisor with a special interest in bereavement and loss, that you hold a master's in bereavement studies and a postgrad in childhood bereavement. You're also the chair of the ICBN, and I'd say when we first started out in Embrace Farm, we went looking for somebody who might help us. And I made a few different phone calls to a number of different organisations, and your name had come up in all of the conversations. So I've no doubt you're very well respected and a leading expert in the south of Ireland and Northern Ireland as well, I believe. So you are a very valued member of Embrace Farm. And I suppose today we would like to kind of chat a bit about bereavement and grief, and especially in the current climate of COVID-19 and how that might be impacting people. You know, I suppose people who are newly bereaved right now. And I guess Ireland is known the world over, I suppose, about how we do funerals so well, and our gatherings and our wakes and the rituals associated with that, and how we can't do those now because of the restrictions to do with COVID-19. How do you think this may be impacting on families that are grieving?
I think one of the things is that it's causing an isolation at the time of the funeral, and yet it's very interesting as you're talking to individual families who have gone through it in the time of COVID and have lost loved ones in this time, that they're actually saying, it has a mixed reaction for them, because one is we're not exposed too publicly. So we actually move very private very quickly and are pushed in on our private grief very quickly. And that can be a blessing in some ways, or, we can actually do it our way and close everything down and not be too traditional. And I think there's an awful lot of emphasis in the media around the loss of rituals, but it's actually that piece. I think the rich piece is that actually it's pushing people to create their own rituals. And, even last week I was chatting to somebody preparing for a funeral, a secular funeral, and they were contacting me around little readings and things like that. And we had a wonderful chat around what was going to be done. And it was so rich, and it was such a celebration of the person. And the tough thing being, again, that there was a time slot. And I think this is one of the things, it's like the time slot and the numbers, because the time slot is, you've got 20 minutes, or you've actually got 40 minutes or whatever. And the other is the numbers. Are we actually at the stage, it just happens in other countries, that we actually invite people to funerals now, and that it's only, well, these are the people who can come, and the rest, I'm sorry, but you can't. And that is so hard for a family at a time of grief, when you really want everybody around to actually celebrate this life together. I know I ended up watching a funeral last Sunday, a cousin in my own family, and having to watch it virtually, knowing that I would normally be there. And it's these things that have made such a difference, but it's actually pushing people into a very private grief very quickly in a world that is so vulnerable at the moment, that if we have been in survival mode for most of this year, between the first lockdown and now phase 2 lockdown, this one. Thankfully today it's we're looking at it, it's Wednesday. We're halfway through this 6 weeks at the moment. So that's good in itself. But the vulnerability leaves us in survival mode, and we can't actually process grief when we're in survival mode. It's too deep a journey to make. So our grief is getting suspended at this time. And then people are feeling guilty about that. And it's okay. There will be time to grieve as time moves on. And it's of realizing. So now is the time of preparation, maybe getting ready some of the rituals or the things one would like to do as they move forward. But it is very, very difficult. But actually those going through, what I'm noticing is they're talking about, it's giving me space now, and I can actually be with my private grief. Or if there's children in the family, I can actually give them more time. Okay. And it's like connecting together, going out for a walk with family members, or even if it is, I have a good listener in my life, and we're actually going to meet on the nearby beach that's in 5K, and we're going to have a socially distanced walk. But you can put all your thoughts out into the ether of the air in those situations, and it's so helpful. So these are the things that we need in order to help at the moment, you know.
So not all negatives, some benefits then. Yeah.
Not at all. No, no. And I think that's the piece of looking at it and thinking we actually have to change our perspective on it and see, you know, there's a beautiful piece done by Kevin McCormick. He has written a poem called Today We Grieved You, Mourned You Differently. And it's a beautiful little poem on YouTube. And again, yes, it's a different style. It's not the way, and we don't understand it because it's not our Irish traditions. We do our funerals well. And that's the piece that's so difficult for everybody. And like, I mean, I have met friends who have been bereaved during COVID who've talked about what it was like going through that. And, you know, I want a memorial service, but I don't know when I'm going to have it. And it's this unpredictability of when can we plan that? Because nobody knows yet. But I think next year we will see a flood of a lot of these remembrance services and everything else coming in. And I think that's the key thing. And that people need the support in that way, you know? Definitely, yeah.
I guess probably one of the most difficult things for families is probably deciding in those numbers, as you say, who are the 25 that can and can't go. I suppose that probably leads on to a conversation about the wider extended family and your community and your neighbours and your friends. You know, right now they can't attend funerals. So how can people like the extended family and the neighbours and the friends, what can they do in these times? Because I know sometimes you might feel like, oh, if I ring up, what will I say? Like, you know, or the person is feeling bad about not being able to go to the funeral. And then if they say that, then you might feel you're being trite in saying something like that. So
I think there's ways of actually just visually showing your support. So this piece of people standing by the side of the road when the cortege is coming to the church or going to the graveyard or wherever, you know, that your presence is there. It's at a distance. Like, I mean, I have stood at funerals in COVID where it's at a distance. And it goes against every grain in your body because you want to just reach out and give somebody a hug at that time, but it's impossible to do it. But it's the piece of coming along and being there, your presence and the applause. Like, I mean, this piece of, you know, the hearse moving along and suddenly there is an applause. And it's like, it means so much to families. I think the other piece is, you know, don't leave, even if it's somebody who was bereaved before COVID, because these are the people that are feeling quite isolated. You know, I had a bereavement in 2019 or 2018. I was only working through my grief and I feel as if I'm forgotten. And it's that piece. Send the text message. Do you need anything? Would you like me to lift the phone and chat? I find even when I'm working with the bereaved now, I send them a text message first. Are you okay to have that chat today? Because yesterday might have been okay, but today it mightn't. But send the text. Just, you know, I'm remembering you. I sent a friend who's bereaved in London a text the other morning. It was the first thing I got this morning was a reply that was sent to me at 6:30 this morning. And oh, thank you for that lovely message. It meant so much. And it's that piece of letting people know you're not alone. We're thinking of you. We're here for you. And I think for the bereaved too, it's gathering the people that are the doers or the listeners. And when we talk about this support bubble, I think the bereaved need to have a doer in the support bubble and a listener. The doer, I'll go get the groceries today. You're not up to it. I'll do the task. I'll milk the cows today. I'll go out on the farm. I'll do. They're the doers. And the listeners are those people that can just hear me where I'm at the moment, whether I want to let a rant, whether all I want to do is cry at you, but the people that can just hold that. And it's so important at the moment. But these are the keys that we need so that we're not left in isolation. And that's for everybody, because there is that sense. And what do? You reach out or send a little card. You know, these things mean millions. And, you know, I have often with bereaved parents here, bereaved parents say, and it always lands on the day that I need it. It always comes at the moment and I'm feeling rock bottom and it suddenly puts a smile on my face. And that's the power of it. So we can't do the things we use.
It's important for people to reach out as well, because sometimes the person who is grieving may not know how to reach out themselves or may not know what they need to ask for or what they need in that point of time, that they're just so overcome at times. They just don't know how to ask for help. So that's where it is important to acknowledge and reach out. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, because it's a little bit, oh, sure, what will people think if I ask? And it's like, no, it's okay to ask. And actually, you know, it's looking and saying, well, who are the key people? And it may be only 3 or 4 people around us. The rest is the wider community. But who is it that I can turn to right now in my moment of need? And know that you can do it for them at another stage, or maybe you've done it already. So it's that piece. So it's, you know, life is full of swings and roundabouts.
Yeah.
It's our turn too, you
Yeah.
know, so it's that piece. Absolutely. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
father used to have a great saying, you know, he said, we're all just waiting for the bus to come for our turn, whenever that will be.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, and that's what happens in communities, you know.
I suppose I just want to move on to talk about the different support organisations that are out there, like ourselves and many others, and where do we fit into this space at this time? I suppose for ourselves, you know, it could be a bit difficult when we're not meeting our members face to face and not exactly catching up with them. And the online world is, while it has its many benefits, sometimes it can be a bit impersonal. But I guess it is the best of what we have at the minute. So just a few chatting about support services.
Don't underestimate the online world. I learned very much from a young man 2 weeks ago, and it's phone calls I'm working with him, and I have to actually text him beforehand. He had lost a friend quite suddenly, a lifelong friend, and he turned around, his comment to me was, he said, you know, he said, I can handle the texts I can get, and I can deal with the phone calls, but if I have to be eyeballed by anybody right now, I can't do it. And I thought, wow, what a learning. And it's actually, it gives anonymity. And what you actually find in the conversations is you have a much more depth conversation. So even talking about that, I'm thinking, well, there's a national helpline that was set up between the HSE and the Irish Hospice Foundation. Again, if you look at the Hospice Foundation website, it's there. So it's just, oh, I need to talk to somebody today. Now, I may not need counselling or anything else, but I need to talk to somebody today. That's what the helpline is there for. If people chatting to you feel you need to be referred somewhere, well, then they may refer you to further support that you can get. And I think that's the one thing that's for yourselves in Embrace. You are one of those gatekeepers at the moment in time that you can actually, somebody phones you looking for information or whatever, you can sort of say, well, actually, this is a place that can really give you that type of help. So you may, even with farm accidents, it may be a spouse that has been lost, or it could be a child. So you maybe bereaved parents you're dealing with. So you can refer them to an organisation like Anam Cara that is for parental support, and they can provide what is needed there. And again, they are working with a number of online meetings. This month of November is the month for remembering. And I know all through this month, there's all sorts of pieces going on. I know the Irish Childhood Bereavement Network on the 23rd, we're doing an evening for parents on supporting children through grief. And there's other events like that coming up. Anam Cara has another one, and it's supporting parents who have been bereaved. And I know yourselves in Embrace, you might like to talk about that, Norma, now in what's coming up for yourselves, you know?
Yeah, so we would usually have our residential weekends. And I've had them over at this stage where one would be in particular for spouses who had lost their husband, wife, partner in a farm accident, or one for families as well, which you would kindly facilitate for us. But we can't have our in-person weekends this time round, so we're having an online virtual meeting of our spouses on the 28th of November. 1.5 to 2 hours of a chat and a catch up, I suppose, in the comfort of your own home. And again, Brid, as you say, it's not all negatives to do with the online world. There's many benefits too.
And I think it allows people to be reflective. That's the piece. And I think in grief we need to be reflective. You know, that we make an appointment with our grief somewhere in the day. Now 5 or 10 minutes. And then we pull away from it. But that's us allowing ourselves to manage our grief rather than grief springing up at bedtime and then we can't sleep any hour of the night because it's all tumbling in. And I think having even a virtual platform where people come together, we can say, well, what's it like for you? And people can reflect on what it has been like and can talk about it, can talk about the concerns. And somebody who's a little bit further down the line can come along and say, well, actually, no, I used to feel like that, but this is what I did. So we're learning from each other and the sense of isolation disappears. And certainly that session we would like to have it a very reflective sort of session, not one that we have to analyze every bit, because I think we get paralyzed in analysis when it comes to grief.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't overthink, just lean into it and lean away. And by doing that, we're actually learning the resilience to actually be with our grief and be with our day-to-day living, and learning the resilience to move forward, which in time will allow us to accommodate these awful losses that we're going through at present. But it does allow for good outcome.
I guess just reflecting on our conversation today, I suppose what we really spoke about was about acknowledgement, and and acknowledging people and reaching out.
Absolutely.
That there are many organizations out there that can have a chat with you. It doesn't have to be all about counseling or analyzing your feelings, as you just say there, Brid. It's about a chat and a catch up.
Yeah.
Ourselves, we're there along with many others. Have a look at our website, many useful links in there. And of course, there's always the Irish Hospice Foundation. And of course, the Irish Childhood Bereavement Network, Brid, which you're chair of, has many useful tips and guidance for many in the community there for children.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a beautiful video on the website at the moment called Tears. It's one that we're having for our Bereaved Children's Awareness Week, which is the 23rd of November. And it's just a beautiful nutshell of about 1.5 minutes, but it's like the things we need to do. And it's actually the talk and the empathy, and of actually acknowledging and, again, reassuring, and then getting support for ourselves as the adults while we're trying to do that for children. So it's a lovely little nutshell, and it's one that we can actually, let others see in terms of social media and everything else. We can always put it up on our Twitter or on our Facebook accounts, and it's that piece, because it's letting everybody know, as the logo has been for the whole of lockdown, is we're in it together. Now, sometimes we don't feel it's like that anymore, but we can still be in grief together. And I think we can support each other very, very kindly in it, And I think that's the thing that counts.
The important thing is just to reach out and do that text or make that phone call and just have a chat, and not to be afraid to pick up the phone to talk to people.
Absolutely.
Again, just check out those websites, our own Embrace Farm or the Irish Childhood Bereavement Network or the Irish Hospice Foundation for any of those things that we're talking about today. And thanks, Brid. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Norma. Take care.